Hello, church, and welcome back to Be Bold, Be Humble, Believe. We're here one final time with Brother Ted, and he's my good friend from Prairie du Chien and Bible Baptist Church. And I hope that you enjoyed the last one, hearing a little bit more about his testimony, how he met his wife. He came back to Prairie du Chien, became the youth pastor there, and hope that was an encouragement to you. And he gave some good examples of waiting on the Lord and going back to God, and then also being eager and wanting to serve God, finding a place. And so many people, even folks will go to Bible college or they'll go get trained, and they end up just going back to church, and they're just they just sit around, and
Yes.
or they're very passive. And they don't even go on bus routes. They don't even go on. Hey, there's a nursing home preacher needed here. And so that gives things. It makes me question. What did they learn there? What was the reason for that? And so we're going to talk a little bit about some kids growing up. And he's been youth pastor for 20 years. I was youth pastor for 12 years. Of course, still very integral in our young people here. And we both have kids growing up and looking at colleges. And he now has some young ladies that are going to college here soon. And so I want to get his perspective. I know that we've talked a little bit about this, but I have some ideas with this. And I believe, we'll talk about this, but the truth is, young people, as they go to school, and we heard some good stuff tonight about how we need young men that are willing to learn some trades.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not everybody's called to the ministry, but you're called to do something.
Yes.
You're called, and I gave a challenge yesterday to our young people for the commencement speech for their graduation. And a big part of that was just, you need to have a goal.
Yeah.
Do not leave here. Do not leave this school. Don't leave this church as some benign earth walker.
Right.
And you're never going to get rid of the Christian title. You're not going to. If you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a Christian engineer.
Yeah.
That you're going to be.
That's so
and
important.
You're going to stand before God
Yeah.
as a Christian first.
Right.
And so no matter what school you go to, you're going to have to answer for being a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought is this. I'm fine with a believer going to a secular school if that believer has a pastor that can answer when the professor says something contrary to Scripture. Generally, I don't believe that is an idea, and I don't think we should even send them to these schools. But if that young person who is very moldable in their mind is ready to answer, but if they can't answer, they need to have a pastor, they need to have somebody, a church nearby that they can go to and say, hey, my professor just told me the story of Genesis is not true. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're finding. And people don't get this. People don't understand it. There is a conglomerate of an industry in public schools, not just high schools, but then state colleges and universities that are dedicated. They have big conferences on how to get Christians to doubt what they've been taught their whole life.
Yep.
And so you understand my problem with I don't hate those schools, but understand they're trying to do this. They're trying to get your kids away.
Right.
And so what is your take on young people going to secular universities and colleges? That's kind of my take. I'm not completely against it. They need to have an answer,
right,
and not be pulled from their faith.
Well, I think, and listen, I've put a lot of thought in this, Brother Dean, with my girls going off to college. The answer to me is this. Number one, you got to understand that these kids are moldable.
Yeah.
No matter how tough they are, no matter how grounded you think they are, they're going to be molded. Just like trying to get them to come to church is trying to get them to, believe what we believe. Sending them off to a state college is going to alter their opinion somehow, some way. And just the honest to God truth, that's going to happen. And that's scary. Now, the other thing is, and let me ask this. This is kind of where I come down on this. Why do we send them off to the state colleges? To make money? Right?
Yeah, most of the time
that's the only reason we'd send them off.
Yeah.
Now, is that actually a answer? And I'm just being honest here. I don't know if that is the answer because I see a whole lot of people making a whole lot of money starting their own businesses
Yeah.
more so than going to
Yeah.
work for
Yeah.
somebody else or
Yeah.
going to work for paying off their school bills, college bills,
Yeah.
get into their 30s, 20s, or late 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying there's not money to be made there.
Yeah.
But boy, it's tough for me to say go to a secular college to earn money. And here's the other. See, the only reason, and I do mean this, that my daughters are going to college is for me. Okay, for me. I know it's not for them. I know this will
Yeah.
probably hairless for people, but is to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Because that to me is the most important thing
Mhm.
in their lives right now is who they marry.
Mhm.
And guys or girls. Because here's the thing, you will change your job.
Yeah.
I've changed my job multiple times, and I'm talking about from the doc to the youth pastor, different things like that.
Yep.
But if you change your wife,
That's a problem.
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, it's going to cost you a whole lot of that
Yes.
money
Yes.
that you went off to get.
Yep.
And I've talked to too many people, like, as well as your identity.
Yeah.
And that's, while it costs you money in the divorce, it also changes who you are.
Yeah.
These things are going to really hurt you.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. So getting a good mate to me is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that, let me just say this, needs to be found in church.
Yeah.
Find a good girl in church. Find a good guy in church.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen there. So as far as colleges go, that to me is the main thing I'm looking for. And I've tried to express this to my daughters.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, girls, I want you to go for the experience and the fun. And there's a lot of things going to college, but the most important thing is who you'll meet.
Yeah.
And I hope and pray that there's spiritual guys there.
And there was a friend of mine who met a young lady at a secular college, and after years they got married. But she got saved. That's the outlier,
right?
You can't. That's not normal,
I know.
And she eventually came to church.
And brother, that
is not normal. Don't think that you're the exception. Everybody thinks they're the exception for all this stuff.
But that does happen. I see it as well, and you can't discount that.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be, because that's hard to say. I know, because I was talking to your dad a little bit about this,
Mhm.
and I believe all your sisters went to college, but then came back and found their husbands here.
That's right.
Correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's what happens. So it's tough. It's a tough. It really is.
Yeah.
And it is a tough one. But Bible college to me is important. And I always tell the kids, I think you should give 1 year to God to learn the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it benefits you financially. I want it to benefit you spiritually.
Yeah.
And Brother Dean, the other thing too that I look in colleges is that. And then I hope and pray, and this is something that I think we do a poor job at, myself included, is we don't do a good job of teaching kids how to date.
Mm.
We kind of run away from it. We're like, oh, don't date. Well, they need to date.
Yeah.
Dating is really important. Yeah. But Bible college kind of helps with that. It teaches them, hey, you can't.
Well, it's almost like they throw them in the fire.
Culture.
Just throw them in the deep end.
Where Bible college will teach that culture. Yeah. Be like, hey, this is how you date. So I like that too in the Bible college side of things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go off to secular college, and Brother Dean, I don't know if you know, but I think you could say this. I remember dating my wife while I worked on the docks, and they were like, well, how come you haven't slept with her yet?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be crass or rude. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I'm a Christian. And Brother Dean, I'm going to tell you, at that time, it was hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
I was a young man, and that you're not,
Were you embarrassed?
Yeah. You're like, well, so that's a tough question. So it is important to have that as something goes on there. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing about these kids going to school and leaving, and the truth is this, another thing if you're like, I want a career in whatever, there's some Bible colleges that are not going to take your kids away from what they have learned their whole life, that can offer some really good degrees. Mm-hmm. And those are options. Don't discredit those places that are giving it. They don't have some, professor that's going to make your kid question what you've taught them all their life. And so do consider that. We're Christians. I mean, Christian schools are important. And so I appreciate that. Thank you for your input on that. And the thing is, okay, you've got some daughters and they're growing up, going to school, and you're thinking about their future.
Yeah.
They're thinking about their future. They're like, well, what they want, what you want, what they need, and it's a moment of like what you were talking about with your testimony. What does God say?
Yeah.
Let's go back to let's pray. Let's find out what is. And this is something that we need to be talking about with our kids, training them. We do not train them
I know.
how we should. And I just did a little bit about the kids. I talked about this a few weeks ago. How we as Christians put up a big fight about sex ed in school.
Right.
You know, and that was good. They should not be teaching that. That is not part of that should not be part of a curriculum. Okay, you can't teach them, and we're not going to teach them either.
I know.
And that caused, well, what they're going to learn somewhere.
Yeah.
And where the kids went to Google, or they went to their
brother.
buddy over here, and they learned stuff on the back of the bus or in a locker room or from somebody, and sin came from that. And the truth is, that is a spot parents need to be training.
And just
Don't ignore it.
Talking about that on dates, like when do you the first kiss? Like this needs to be brought up.
Yeah.
Like it should be at the altar, not on your third date.
Yes.
Like that's because the world teaches that.
Yes.
And listen, I think it's even worse now. All right, but sitcoms is where I got that from.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just telling you, like that's where I
That's
got
the rule.
a lot of that.
Third date.
It's like, yeah, you're like, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm just telling you, that's what happens is kids will learn.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, they learn so much more from what they see rather than anything else.
That's right.
So television was and will be a big teacher in this area.
Yeah.
Because it's not taught on much.
Or Google or
Man.
sitcom. Like we watch this and this is what they did and that's probably what we do, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It is.
And so that's why we must pursue God with this.
Yeah.
Be bold, be humble, and believe. And this is so important, us teaching our kids and leading them. I don't know where my kids are going to go to school, but they're praying about it right now. We're talking about it. We're having dialogue about what do you want to do? Where are you going to go? What's this school like? And but that's something that's on their heart and on their mind as they're just young teenagers. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're praying about it now. And so I appreciate your input once again on that. Thank you so much, folks. Have a great week, and thank you, Brother Ted, for being with us. God bless you.